This is the Bar and Friends podcast, and I am Christian Barr. And on today's pod, we have a woman of God and private life coach. She helps women crush self doubt and show up boldly in their God given business. She also hosts her own podcast, or I should say, video podcast now, called The Bold Believers. She has a dog named Eric. And so let's welcome Kelly Dawn on the Bar and Friends podcast. How are you, friend?
I am doing so good. Thanks for having me on your show.
I see that you wear a lot of black, which of course, black looks good on you. But I want to know, is there a reason behind that? Or is it just because you just think that you just look fly wearing black all the time?
I love this question. So, I've always really liked black. I've never really been a big fan of color. And over the years, my wardrobe just got more black clothes in it. And then back around 2019, 2020, I did a photo shoot for my business. And at that point in time, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll add in some color, like just for something different. And I went out, I went shopping, I bought a couple of outfits, I did the photo shoot, and then I was like, yeah, this isn't me. And I ended up donating those clothes, going back to all black. And I've always just loved it. And one thing that I love about it is that when I get dressed in the morning, there's not a lot of decision fatigue involved whatsoever. It's basically go to the closet, there's a black dress, a black top, black pants, black short, whatever. Really, really simple. But then not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, I was given this vision by God and I saw everything so clearly. And I'm a very visual person to begin with, but I saw myself wearing this outfit that was like a blue and white striped pinstripe, there we go, pinstripe shirt with
Mhm.
jeans and gold jewelry. I was like, okay, that's a vibe, but I don't really wear that kind of stuff. But when I saw the vision, I was like, all right, I'm going to start bringing color back into my wardrobe. So it's into my branding now. Even my branding for my business over the years has been really black, a lot of really dark colors, if I do incorporate colors at all. And now I've completely swung in the other direction because I found out I'm a spring in the whole color analysis thing, and spring colors are like, they're bright, right? So I started with my branding. I'm slowly but surely going to be incorporating more color into my wardrobe, but I think I'll always like black just because it's simple and it's easy, and I don't know, I just like it. But I'm
Yeah.
starting to wear more color, or I will be wearing more colors as soon as I actually get some shopping done.
I see that your characteristic, of course, is bold. It's courageous. Has this characteristic come natural to you?
No. So when I was younger, I was pretty bold and outspoken at home or around my friends. I wasn't a shy kid at home, but at school, if I was around a larger group of people, I had a really hard time just taking up space and being there. And then I noticed as I got more and more into business, I had to speak up. I had to take up space. I was the face of a personal brand. And I had to do a lot of work around confidence. And this actually started back when I had my cleaning business. And back then, I was doing in home sales consultations. I would go to people's homes and do like a walkthrough and give them a quote and doing like that face to face work. Like, I was okay if it was just one person. But if I was speaking in front of more than one or two people, like my face would go bright red and I get really shy and really nervous. And so I remember going on this quest for confidence. And I wasn't with God back then. So I was on this quest for confidence and I went to the library and I think I checked out every single book on the topic. And I remember there's this one book that I got that had a hypnosis CD in the back of it. And I would lie on the floor in my apartment so I didn't fall asleep because if I was on the bed, I'd just pass out. But I'd lie down on the floor on my yoga mat and I would put my headphones in and I'd like listen to this hypnosis on how to be more confident. And then like, okay, why isn't this working? Because
Mhm.
confidence and boldness, it all comes through action. And when we show up and we prove to ourselves and to our nervous system that we can be bold, that we can put ourselves out there and we're going to be safe at the same time, that's when that grows. So we basically have the courage and the bravery to be bold, and then the confidence gets built after that. But no, it definitely was not something that came naturally. It's definitely been something that's been a work in progress.
In this season of your life, Kelly, I want to know, is there a season or is there a song that fits the season that you are in right now?
Yeah, I love this because the first song that comes to mind is "This Girl's on Fire,"
Hmm.
because I find I'm on fire for God. That's something that's been going since I came back to Him really strong. And also, I feel like I just have this whole new passion for life. Like, I just feel more fired up about life in general, about my business, because it feels like things were kind of like black and white. And at the time, everything felt fine. Before I came back to God, everything seemed fine. But now it's like everything's technicolor. Like life just has so much more richness to it. And I just feel like there's so much brewing within that I want to get out there and I want to do. And I've been incorporating more movement. I've noticed like my energy is just through the roof, like Tasmanian devil kind of like energy where I just like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. And all of a sudden it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm like, I need to get to sleep because I'm going to be up at 3 in the morning. So yeah, that fire, man, I can just feel it burning.
You get up at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
Why? Tell me why.
You
I'm
know what?
interested.
I've always been a morning person. When I was younger, I couldn't sleep in. And I used to get so irritated with myself because I thought growing up, like especially early teen years, it was normal to sleep in. And I'm like, well, I'm
Right.
not cool like my friends if I'm up early, but I would be up at the crack of dawn. It's Dawn is my middle name too. I go by Kelly Dawn online, but it's just my middle name. But I find like I am just wired for early mornings. And then when I had my first dog, Oliver, he had some behavioral issues. And so when I had to work him out and play frisbee with him, I had to go out pretty early in the morning so we didn't run into other dogs at the dog park or anything. And so I would take him out usually around, I don't know, like 4:30, between 4 and 5 usually. And I'm also a coffee drinker and I like to journal and read in the morning. So I would get all that done and then I would take him out and then start my day. So over the years, 3 a.m. just became the wake up time, and I love it. Like I love getting up before the rest of the world wakes up. And right now, I can sit on my living room couch in the morning. I'm drinking my coffee, I'm reading, and I can hear the birds start chirping. I'm like, oh, this is it. The fact that God designed birds to chirp first thing in the morning, and He gave us that song to wake up to, I'm just like so grateful. It's one of those things that just, oh, I love it.
Now, I do have some quotes that you have come up with, and I just kind of wanted you to elaborate on them. You down with that?
Sure thing.
Quote number one: you're waiting for proof that it's working, but God's already anointed you.
Yeah. Yeah, I find so often we want to see things that are working before we feel like they're meant for us. And the people I coach, they're mainly women in business. And this will often look like, well, I'll feel more successful once I see the sales coming in, or I'll feel more confident to show up in my business once I have more sales, once I have more followers. It's like, no, 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 no. God's already told you what to do. He's already told you what you're meant for. And so we need to be showing up for that. Like we can't just wait around for all of the evidence to, appear before us. It's like we're not going to have this red carpet rolled out with everything that we want right in front of us to show us that we're worthy of it or that it's ours to have. No, we get to decide because God already told us and then move from that place of knowing and trusting that it's meant for us.
Ah, so good. Quote number two: courage isn't something you wait for, it's a decision you make daily.
Yeah, if we wait around expecting confidence to just drop out of the sky or expecting to feel ready. That's a huge one. That whole ready thing. And ready is a lie. Ready doesn't even exist. When we do the thing without needing that, that's when we prove to ourselves, like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And so it's about moving with courage. It's about moving with bravery, knowing that when we take that first step, we're going to become the person who can handle it. We're going to become the person who has that confidence building over time. And it never really ends. It's not like we get to a point and we're like, okay, I'm confident. That's it. I never have to do anything again that's the least bit scary. No, there's always going to be a next level available. But when we move with courage and we prove to ourselves, like, yeah, okay, when I show up and I do the thing, I'm building character. Like I'm building that inner strength. I'm building that confidence. And it just shows us that we can do things that previous versions of ourselves never even thought were possible.
When you think of the word bold, what is the first picture that comes to your mind?
Oh, the first image is just like light coming through us, like God's light, God being represented through us, and us not holding back, like us being everything that God created us to be, without thinking that we have to tone it down, without thinking that we have to be like somebody else in order to fit in or be liked. Because so often we don't want to be too much. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to look stupid. This is a huge thing, especially for people in business. You're afraid to make the move and put yourself out there. You're afraid to be bold because what if you fall on your face? What if you fail because people are watching? But that boldness is knowing that God's got you. Like we just mentioned, like God is living within you. You don't have to do this on your own. You have Christ's strength within you. And when you let that boldness shine through, that light, that love of God that is dwelling within you, like it just gets like, I feel it creates a ripple effect, right? Like when we
Mhm.
allow ourselves to be who we're meant to be without holding back, without people pleasing, without playing small and really sitting on the sidelines of our life, I think that really honors God. Like we're creating this ripple effect where it basically gives other people permission to be who they're meant to be.
Mm.
Like I've talked to so many people over the years, and I was one of those people too, who thought that life was supposed to go a certain way and they had to be a certain way in order to be accepted, in order to do things right, in order to be successful, in order to get life right. But they're miserable because they're not
Mm.
living as they're meant to. They're not allowing that boldness and that authenticity to shine through.
What scripture encourages you or motivates you when it comes to those types of attributes, as far as, like, boldness and courage? Like, what's a go-to scripture that just comes to your mind right at
Oh,
this second?
I love it so much. Philippians 4:6. Philippians 4:6 is
Mm.
my go-to one because I find it's so easy for us to worry, right? We move into this place of what will people think? Is this the right move? Am I too, like the mind will go off into crazy directions that will make us spin and worry and anxiety. And I absolutely love how God gives us this formula for how to deal with it. And I come back to it all the time because my mind, it'll want to take me off into the bushes, into places that aren't helpful, that aren't in line with God's vision. I'm like, no, 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 no. We're going to come back here. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm not going to be anxious. Instead, I'm going to take everything to God. I'm just going to pray to Him and tell Him what I need in the moment. I'm going to thank Him. And then I get to experience God's peace. And when we're at peace, when we have God's peace and we're not worried, we're not anxious, we're at peace with what is, that's when we can just allow ourselves to be. Like we're not wearing a mask. We're not trying to impress people. We're not trying to keep up with other people. We're just exactly who God made us. And we can rest in that. And that's such a beautiful, calm, peaceful place to be.
Fear can be our default right now with what we see on the news, politics, education, race. But the Lord causes us not to worry and not to be anxious. And I get it. Sometimes we do feel that weight, we do feel that burden. But once we do, I'm just reminded that I am not of this world, I'm not of this kingdom. And it encourages me too that there are people like you and other friends in my life, that there's a remnant of us that are really sold out for Jesus, and that really want to see people saved, and that really want to see change happen. And yeah, I mean, like when I think about that, just peace comes all over me, because I know that in the midst of it all, God is still good, and God will fight for his people. Kelly, I'm gonna have some fun with you. I know that you have gazillions of tats on your body. What tattoo means the most to you?
I would say at this point in my life, it is the, how do I show that? There we go. Got it
Okay.
right. That I got that faith tattoo with a cross back in my, it would have been my early 20s.
Hmm.
So I've had a very on again, off again relationship with God over the years. I spent most of my life in witchcraft, but during my 20s, that was a really pivotal moment in my spiritual journey where I was feeling so close to God, so close to Jesus. And I got that done, and it just felt like just a marker of that relationship that I had with him. And even though I chose to walk away over the years, like multiple times, that was still anchored there for me as this reminder. And I don't even remember I think I got this out in BC when I was traveling there, maybe. I'm not even sure where I got it. I have a lot of tattoos, so I don't know I don't remember a lot of the details for every single one, but that's one that is definitely my favorite because I have so many that I regret. I have some awful, I mean, not just because of the symbolism, but just like horrible tattoos that I've gotten over the years because they were cheap or a friend was doing it. And yeah, but this
Right.
one, I'm happy I got it for sure.
What is it about tattoos? Like, are you still going to continue to get them? And like, do you do you like the pain?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely do. Absolutely.
I'm like, she must love the pain because that's the only
Yeah.
reason why I would think that you would continue to get tats. But yeah, like your your tats display like the different seasons of life that you were in, right?
Right, exactly, and that's the thing, like, the pain itself, it's not really that bad. Like, certain
Okay.
spots, they hurt, not gonna lie, but for the most part, it's just kind of like a dull, annoying feeling, but I fall asleep when I get tattooed, I kinda just zone out, and it's not even that big of a deal, but there is something, I guess maybe it's like endorphins that are released or something when we're in that moment that you just kinda get hooked on, and
Yeah.
when I was younger, I would notice, like, I would need my fix about once a year, and I usually got tattooed a little more often than that, but if I was going too long without getting tattooed, I'm like, "Wait a second, I need I need something." So I'd mosey on down to the local shop and get a little piece of work done, but, I haven't really cared that much about them for the last few years. I have one that got started, I think it was during COVID. I'm not
Hmm.
sure, but I moved away, from the city that I lived in where my regular artist is, and, yeah, I haven't had any desire to get one for the last few years, but I do like, even though I have some regrets for the specific ones that I've had over the years, at the same time, like you said, like, they do mark the journey. I can look back and, even though I don't remember exactly the details for all of them, there are significant moments in my life where I'm like, "That's when I got that tattoo, that's associated with that memory," and I feel it's kinda nice to be able to have that with us, even if we've moved on from certain things in our life. We can see how we've
Hmm.
progressed. We can see how we've changed.
Yeah, I would love to hear Kelly Don's Genesis.
Okay. I didn't take you right back to when I was maybe in kindergarten. I'm not sure how old I was back then, maybe 5 or so, because that's when I first really got interested in the spirit realm. And as a kid, I loved watching any kind of show on magic. I loved witches. I thought all that stuff was really cool. And I also thought that it was just pretend. I thought it was all fairy tales. And then we lived in a home. It was this old farmhouse. And my mom and her friends were over, or her friends were over, and they were having a girls' night. And someone brought a Ouija board and they connected with the spirit in the house. And the spirit, his
Mm.
name was Jesse. They were having this whole conversation with it, and they were just playing around. Like, my mom wasn't into any spiritual activities like that normally or anything. It was just for fun. But I thought, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, we have a ghost in the house. We can connect with spirits. And I wasn't scared. I thought this was like amazing because as a kid, I was introverted. I didn't really get along with other kids very well. I thought, if I can have a ghost friend, how amazing is that going to be? So I feel that was the thing that really opened me up to the spirit world in general. And I felt really comfortable with it from a young age. And then as I got older, I don't know what it was, but I felt this deep pull to be with God. And I grew up in rural Ontario. And so if you weren't a Christian, you were really, like, I guess, an atheist, but I was not exposed to world religions at all. But our family, we weren't religious. Like, we weren't regular churchgoers. We would go on Christmas and Easter, and I was baptized Anglican. And so we identified as Christian, but it wasn't a huge part of our day to day life. But I remember walking out on our property. And back then, we had 11 acres. There was a pond. There was this rock that I would go and sit on. And I would just be like, oh man, like, I'm surrounded by nature. And I just felt God's presence, even though I didn't really have a big understanding of what God was back then or anything. But I just knew that I wanted to be with God. And then around the age of 14, I'm not even sure how I stumbled across it, but I got into witchcraft and Wicca. Like, I had read books on fortune telling and ghosts and spirits and things like that and magic. And then oh, there it is. It was a book that I found that the first part of the book was more folk magic and spells. And then the second part was Wicca. which is, if your listeners are unfamiliar with that, it's an earth-based religion that honors a god and a goddess, but not the god. And it really honors nature and the cycles of nature, that very similar to what older pagan religions would follow. And I got into that for a little while. And then I loved the fact that nature was such a big part of that religion, but I didn't feel the same kind of connection that I did when I was connecting with God when I was younger, right? And so over the years, I really stayed in witchcraft for a very long time. I identified as a witch and I would do spells and I would, talk to the trees and everything like that. And then as I got older, in my late teens, early 20s, that's when I really thought that I had to do life a very specific way. And I thought that I had to go to college, get a good job, get a car, get a house, get the boyfriend, get the retirement savings plan. And I thought that if I ticked off everything on this list, then I would be happy, fulfilled, and successful. And my spiritual practice, it kind of went on the back burner because I was doing things, but I wasn't really feeling that deep connection. So I still identified as a witch. I would still do rituals and things like that. But life was really about achievement. And I got into this place where I had everything ticked off on my list and I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. And that's when I really got into partying. And I would overshop, I would drink, I would drug, I would party all weekend. I was very high functioning. It was very rare that I would do anything during the week. But if I did, I would just do some drugs or keep drinking and go to work kind of messed up and make it through the day. But I really felt lost. And I knew that there was something more. Like, I'm like, this isn't normal. Like, I'm pretty sure this isn't what life is supposed to be like. And I was also struggling a lot with mental illness. I had a suicide attempt. I had one when I was younger, when I was around 14. No, how old was I? I was in grade 6. I always go, when it comes to time, I find it a lot easier to go by school grades, but I was in grade 6
Right.
when I attempted suicide for the first time because I just felt like I don't belong here and nothing bad had ever happened. I had a great childhood. I had loving parents. They were divorced, but I always had, loving family and friends around me, but I just felt like there's something wrong. I don't belong here. I'm tired and I just want to go home, wherever home was. I didn't really know what that was. But that I worked through that when I was younger. I was put on some medications for a little while and then off of them. And then in my early 20s, I'm in this space where I'm going to work every day. I'm feeling extremely guilty because I worked for the family business. And I'm like, okay, you should be so grateful that you're here. And I understand the privilege that came along with that opportunity, but I was miserable. And so I'm drinking, I'm drugging, I'm out with different guys, and I'm just like feeling so numb. And I feel like I'm in life, but I'm not actually living it. I felt like this character just kind of going through the motions. And then in my early 20s, I had a fairly serious suicide attempt. An ex found me. He was an ex-boyfriend, but he was still connected to my job. He worked for one of our suppliers, and it was a family business, so everyone knew everyone. And my manager, when I called in sick, she knew something was up because I never took sick days unless I was like on my deathbed with the flu. And she's like, Sean, why don't you go swing by Kelly's apartment and see if she's okay? Because there's just something off there. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel right about it. And he got to my apartment, saw me. I had vomit all over my pajamas because I had gone through this place where I'd puke and then I'd pass out and then I'd come to get sick again. And he found me in this disgusting state, called an ambulance. And then when I got to the hospital and finally got fixed up, they said, well, if you had have been left for bed another 4 hours, you would have been gone. Like, your liver has just been basically chewed up because of, I ate a bottle of pills and drank a bottle of vodka. That was my method, right? And I was so mad. I was furious that he found me. I was furious that I was still alive. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong here. And so I went to therapy. I was put on prescription medications. And then around this time, too, I had a very close friend, who's actually a cousin, who she had been going through some personal struggles and she got into going to church. And I was watching her change right before my eyes. We were really, really close back then. I was like, man, oh man, like whatever she's doing with Jesus, it's working. Like, this woman is changing her life before my eyes and it's sincere. Like, she wasn't just to go to church on Sunday, put on a happy face and then be her old self during the week. Like, this woman was changed. And my mindset back then was, if Jesus is working for her, maybe this Jesus thing is going to work for me too. And I went to church and I loved it. I was just like on fire for the Lord. I felt this deep connection to Jesus. I experienced so much healing during that time. But then two things happened. First thing was, I still wanted to go out and party all the time. I hadn't left that behind. And I felt like I can't be that person who sits in church on a Sunday reeking of booze and cigarettes.
Come on.
Right? That's what I thought. And my cousin, she's like, let God work on you. Like, don't give up on God. Like, she wasn't encouraging me to live that old lifestyle, but she said, don't give up on God. Like, he's going to help you through all this. Like, he's going to take you through things in his timing, but just stick with him. And so she was really encouraging, but I'm like, I just can't do this. And then the other piece is I had a really hard time believing what was in the Bible. And that how can this loving God of the Old Testament wipe out nations? And I was having such a difficult time balancing, like, he's a loving God and I have this really deep close relationship with him, and at the same time he's this God over here in the Old Testament. And when I would ask people, I would often be met with an answer that was very similar to, well, you just have to trust God. We're not supposed to understand, we have to trust God. I'm like, that's not doing it for me. And I also always felt this really strong pull back to witchcraft. And I just felt like this feels so much more comfortable. I feel more at home with witchcraft and the belief system with that. It just felt a lot more true for me. And so I would swing back and forth. And then over the years, it was like this on again, off again thing with God, where I would get like this nudge to open up my Bible or turn on a TV sermon or even go to church. And then I'd go, or I'd read the book, or I'd read a passage. It's like, no, this isn't for me. I've been there, done this. This isn't for me. And sometimes it would last maybe a day. Other times I would go back to church maybe for 2 months at a time and get right back into things. But it's like I always hit this wall when it came to belief. And I always felt this pull back to witchcraft. And it was like, it was tormenting me for the longest time. And then I got to a place where I'm like, if I identify as a witch and I take that on as my spiritual path, I have the ability with witchcraft. It's basically you believe whatever it is you want to. There's no rules. Like, there are different types of witchcraft as far as the different practices. But if I wanted to read my Bible on a Saturday afternoon and then go to my altar and do a candle spell to, I don't know, for healing or for love or money, there wouldn't be any conflict with that, with my mindset, right? So I just kind of let things be. And I identified as a witch for the longest time. And I felt really comfortable on that path. And then around, when was it? 2016. It would have been late 2015, early 2016. I started working with demons. And during that time leading up to that, I've always been a huge fan of podcasts. And I would listen to a lot of different occult podcasts and witchcraft podcasts. And at first, when I would hear people talking about working with demons, I was like, what? Like, we don't go there. Those are the scary guys. Those are the bad guys, right? But then I would listen to people who were actually connecting with these spiritual entities, and they were normal, sane people. They weren't doing anything to hurt other people. And the way that they had experiences with that work, it was empowering. And the demons were helping them in their day-to-day life. I'm like, okay, well, I've been lied to. Like, these guys, these are the old pagan gods and gods that got, basically brushed under the surface. And we were told that they were bad when Christianity came through the land. And like, maybe these guys were the good guys all along, right? And so I started working with demons, and I had great experiences. And it's nothing like you see. I mean, maybe it is for some people. In my experience and the people that I've ever been connected with, it's nothing like you see in the Hollywood movies. There's no babies on the altar, any of that nonsense. But right. I mean, demons are capable of doing horrific things. So I know stuff like that happens, but not right. Like the people walking around practicing witchcraft, 99.9% of them are not into that kind of stuff. So I found it really empowering, loved the work, and I started bringing more and more of that into my business. And so with the business side of things and the way that I got into coaching and the work that I do now, I had started a cleaning business. I had left my 9-to-5. I had left my dad's company. And that was a whole thing that was really challenging for me to walk away from, because I was terrified. I grew up there. I spent 16 years there, and I didn't think I could really make it in the real world, because I'd been very privileged to have the opportunity to be in that space. But I ended up leaving that job, working at Tim Hortons for a little while, which is like a fast food coffee shop. I think you guys have them down in the States, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I worked at Tim Hortons for a little bit. Everyone thought I was nuts. Everyone thought I was absolutely crazy. But I'm like, if I'm going to figure out what I want to do with my life, I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to get out of this regular day-to-day routine, because I'm never going to leave. There's no reason for me to leave. I have great health benefits, vacation pay. I'm like, I've been here since I was a little kid. Like, I'm good here. So I had to leave and get out of that situation. And then I worked a few different odd jobs, started a cleaning business. And that's when I really got into the coaching side of things. And that led me to the work that I'm doing now with the business side of things. But that side, that started off with helping people reach their goals. I was really into Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and a lot of the success mindset stuff. And I was applying what I was learning to my cleaning business. And that took off like wildfire. And I remember sitting there and I had my dog, not Eric, I had another dog at the time named Oliver, and he was a puppy. And he would sit on my lap, and I was up early in the morning with my coffee, and I'd be journaling and reading. And I remember thinking to myself, I bet there are people out there who want to create change in their life, but they don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning before work and read Tony Robbins. They want someone to just tell them what to do. They want someone to coach them. And that's what kind of opened that doorway. And at first, it was really about general manifestation, law of attraction, personal development. And then over the years, to really get a little more niche down and specific, I started talking about witchcraft. And then later on over the years, when I got into working with demons, that became the really like the center of my business. I wrote a book on Luciferian witchcraft. I had a program called the Order of Demonic Witchcraft. Like everything in my business was centered around demonolatry, Satanism, Luciferianism, and really helping people understand that this is a path of empowerment. Because this is a really sneaky thing with these practices. I think some people think, oh my gosh, once you're dabbling in witchcraft, you're hurting animals and children and you're doing all these horrific practices. No, the deception is thinking that you're in charge of everything and that you're God. That's the deception. And that you're the one in control. And you think this is great. Like when you look at the Luciferian tenets, it's all about living the life like that you've been given to the fullest. It's about being the best version of you. It's very empowering. There's nothing sinister about it, right? And so I was helping people say, like, this is what it's all about. And I was having these great experiences with these different entities I was working with. And so I was sharing more and more of that in my business. And then it was around mid-April, I came across, it was a YouTube video that was made by a witch, and she was looking at different TikToks from people who had been in the New Age and witchcraft and not really critiquing, but basically going through and sharing her viewpoints on people who left witchcraft and came to Jesus. And at first I was like nodding along, like, yep, these people are, they're on fire for the Lord, but they're doing like a complete 180. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know how anyone can go back to that or believe that after they've had their eyes open to everything that's out there. Because with occultism, it's all about hidden wisdom. It's about knowing everything. It's about knowing the secrets of the universe, right? Like, how are these people so dumb? Like at this point in time, I was actively preaching against God. I was actively preaching against Christianity because with my coaching, even though I never had a bad experience in religion, I know a lot of women and some men too, they suffered sexual abuse, religious trauma, and not great things came out of their experience with church, not because of God. Like some people they did struggle with the theology and belief, but for the most part is because of what happened with other Christians.
Yes.
Right? So I'm like, this religion is horrible. So I was talking very openly about it. And then another interview popped up because that's the way the algorithm works, right? When you watch one thing.
Yep.
This one is between two women who had been in New Age who came to Christ. And I'm listening to them talk and I'm feeling this rage come up in my body. And I'm like, why am I so angry listening to these women talk about their spiritual journey? Like, I've always been very live and let live. Like I have friends of all different spiritual paths and religions, never bother me one little bit. But the rage I was feeling, I'm like, this isn't normal. And then I noticed that I couldn't turn it off. And when I did turn off the interview, I would go back to it like 5 minutes later. I'm like, oh, I have to listen to these two idiots talk about Jesus. Like it was so weird that I was having this reaction to their conversation. And then I remember there was a pivotal moment. I was driving home from my mom's place. And when I drive, I have the radio cranked up, windows down, through the countryside. It's a beautiful thing. I pulled over on the side of the road, grabbed my phone and turned the podcast interview back on so I could finish it. And I'm like, what is going on? And so that happened with the interview. I was also seeing more and more content from Christian creators on Instagram pop up. And it was like, I was seeing these videos that made me look at things differently. And I really feel like God was opening my heart a little bit, like moment by moment by moment. I'm like, I never looked at things that way. I never saw things that way. Well, this makes sense that he was like this in the Old Testament. And I was learning from all these different like pastors and biblical scholars. And then this happened over the course of a few days. I'm like, something's happening here. And at that point in time, I didn't have any desire whatsoever to go back to God. I was very happy with my spiritual practice, but I'm like, something's up. I know something's changing. I didn't see myself going back to God, but I'm like, there's going to be a change. And I don't know what it is, but it feels really big. And then on April the 8th, God had led me to read Ephesians 2, 1-5. And I don't even remember how that came about, but I opened up my Bible, I read that, and I knew in that moment that I was meant to drop everything I had been doing with witchcraft. And it was the easiest thing I've ever done. And I'm still shocked by this because over the years, it always felt like a struggle. And over the years, it was always like, well, I don't believe in this. But this time, it was like the image God showed me was this dead branch that fell away from a tree. And he's like, you have exhausted this path. There is nothing there for you. This path, it leads to nothing. It's dead. You're not getting what you need from it. And any resistance that I had once had in the past towards God, it just melted. I'm like, okay, I'm coming home. And that was that moment. And it was in the New King James Version of the Bible where in that passage it talks about Satan being the spirit of the air. And in my demonology practice, Lucifer was the main spirit that I worked with, and he's known to be associated with the element of air. And when I read that, I was like, this is it. I've been deceived. And I couldn't explain it. Logically, I kind of put logic aside, which sounds kind of funny because I'm a very like analytical person, logical person. But I put it aside and I just opened my heart to God. I'm like, okay, I surrender. I'm yours. And it was April the 8th. I turned everything over to God. I made an announcement to my community. I closed down my programs. I let my clients know, like, I'm more than happy to finish out our contracts with the work that we're doing. Like, it was business coaching, basically, anyway. It wasn't a lot of the spiritual mentorship at all, but closed everything down and just made a massive pivot and made God the head of my life and business on April the 8th. That was the day.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Because you think when you're working for Satan, you're thinking that, no, she's mine. You
Yeah.
think that it's the Lord and it's Satan playing tug of war for your soul, which I'm sure that probably happened in the spiritual realm. But it's like you felt nothing really. You just, I'm
No.
pretty sure that your sleep patterns were off. But besides that, you felt nothing, right?
Yeah, and I was shocked by that because I was listening, like once I opened up more to God, I was listening to a lot more conversations that women were having who had been in witchcraft, new age, occultism, and come to Christ. And I was hearing like these horror stories of, they're seeing demons in the mirror manifest and they're having all these horrific experiences. And my sleep for the first 2 weeks afterwards, my sleep, which in general, it's not that great to begin with at my stage in life, but it was really, really messed up for the joys of getting older, right? It was really messed up for a couple of weeks, but everything just the fact that I let go of it so easily still shocks me to this day because it was everything. I was at my altar, this table behind me that has a plant on it now. That was the altar that I was at daily. I was connecting with demons and Satan and Lucifer. I had a business centered around it. I had other books on the go. Like I had this vision to bring this business to the next level. And I felt so locked in and loaded with it. And for all of it to just be like gone, I'm like, what? But it's God, right? God's going to come along. And when he's had enough, he's like, enough is enough. You're not meant to do this anymore.
Yeah. And then with all of your books and your content, like you just discontinued all of that, right?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I have a new Instagram account now, but I had about a little over 5,000 followers at the time. I put a post up, got some very interesting reactions from people. And
Yeah.
I said, hey, this is my experience from now moving forward. This is what I'm going to be talking about. So I still do the same type of coaching around mindset and confidence and boldness. I'm just doing it now with God at the center of the business. So I said, we're going to have the same content, but I'm going to be talking about God because he's in charge now. And I deleted all of my old content there, started fresh. And then I just got tired of fighting with the algorithm after a month or so. I'm like, okay, I'm getting like crickets. A lot of these people, they're following me and they're not really liking what I'm sharing, but they're still watching everything I do up in my stories. I'm just going to go start a new account. And then over on Facebook, I've gone back and I've deleted some stuff, but I mean, there's years of content over there. So my old stuff, some of it's still up over there, but I just go through and delete things when I, sitting around and have some time, or if I see a Facebook memory pop up, I'm like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. But I had a podcast that I shut down that I had run it for years, and then I kind of let it go and started another one, but I had reignited it. I had like over 500,000 downloads. I'm like, nope, you're gone. You're shut down. Started up Bold Believers. And I just started over with God.
I have to laugh because that's bold, Kelly. That's bold. You're
Yeah.
just like, listen, I'm all in for Jesus,
Yep.
cutting ties with Satan and his goons, and that's wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so there's just no turning back, huh?
No, no,
Wow.
and it's interesting. I've done some networking with other Christian women in business, and we've had some one-to-one conversations. And that's a common question I've had is like, do you feel tempted? Like, is there still that temptation to go back to those practices because you did them for so long? I'm like, no. And it's weird because I was doing them daily. I was so into it. Like it was woven into every aspect of my life. And to have it just fall away like nothing, I don't know. I just find it really interesting, but also very grateful that there isn't that temptation. There's just nothing left for me there. And I feel I was at that point, like I've been practicing witchcraft primarily since I was 14 years old. I'm 47 now. So I've explored a lot when it comes to that world. I've done the different practices. I've read the books. I've gone in all the different directions that are available. And that's another thing with that path that I feel is the dangerous part of it is that it keeps you so busy. And like obviously it keeps you away from God. That's the main problem. But it's addictive because oh, that's Eric bumping up against the table. Uh,
All good.
it it keeps you really interested because these topics they are exciting, they're interesting, and most people are having really great experiences with them. They're experiencing healing and growth and development, all these things that we label as positive. And so for instance, like I remember when I was learning more about astrology, I'm like, oh yes, okay, this is the thing, I'm going to get into this. And then you realize, oh, okay, this kind of feels empty. I'm going to go over and I'm going to learn about human design. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to learn about that. And the image that God showed me around this is it's like you're digging these shallow wells. And at first you're hitting water and you're just like, yes, I'm being quenched. I'm getting that spiritual food. This is incredible. I'm seeing the results in my life. I'm seeing the results in my business. But then the well, because it's so shallow, it runs dry and you have to go on to the next thing. And then with God, what he told me, I have chills as I'm saying this. He's like, I'm like, the well's never going to run dry. I'm the, like, right? Living water. Like, it's never going to run dry. There's always going to be more to explore with God, right? And so there's always going to be more study. Like, I mean, you can read the Bible how many times, and it's like a brand new book every time you read it. Like, there's always more with God, but it's that well that runs so deep. That's where your spiritual nourishment's going to come from.
Let me move on before we have revival. Wow. And to go back to, because you mentioned something that I think is so important. It's it's not actually what you do in witchcraft. It's or whatever you worship or you do, but it's like the goal is Satan's primary goal is to get you distracted with things and just putting God all the way in the back burner. And it kind of reminds me of the scripture, I think it's in Isaiah, and I'm just paraphrasing, where, the Lord just had enough and he kicked him out of heaven. And he kicked him out of heaven because he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to be the CEO of heaven. He wanted to be the Michael Jackson of heaven. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, isn't it crazy? Because he's the prince of the air. And I think it's crazy, especially in today's climate, that Satan's goal is to make it seem like we are the CEOs of our life, that we are in control. And if he can control us with our phones or just everyday things, eventually we will fade away or we'll fall away from Jesus. And I just think that was just the goal, especially in your life, Kelly, just to kind of just keep you busy or to keep you quenched, as you said. And but isn't that crazy? You were thinking, you were thinking that you were getting quenched, but you were really just dry.
Yeah. And the amount of peace I've experienced since coming to God, that's the thing that I'd find like I still have a hard time even believing it. I'm like, how can I feel this good? How can I feel this at peace? Because I felt fine before. And that's the thing.
Right.
Like, I wasn't like, I've had people say, well, of course you're running back to God because, you're desperate for this, or this is happening. I'm like, I haven't drank. I haven't done drugs. Like, I'm like a happy, healthy person. Like, I wasn't running from anything. And I thought I was so happy. I thought I was so content. And then you get with God and you're like, oh, this is what it's meant to be like. It's this kind of peace. It's this kind of fulfillment. It's this kind of relationship with the divine. This is the way it gets to be. And it's just so, so different.
Wow. So I need to go back because I have a few questions.
Mhm.
Going back to witchcraft, I want you to explain. You might feel God's presence with this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. I want you to explain your rituals versus being in God's presence. What are the differences?
Yeah. So with ritual, I found I loved the practice because of like, lighting the candles, getting into like the state of mind, like a trance state of mind. Like I really enjoyed that because it felt good for the body, felt really good for the body to go through the motions and do those things. But it felt like a lot of work. And even if it was something like a simple candle spell, it would be like, okay, I'm going to light a green candle. I'm going to anoint it with we'll use like money oil because money spells, love spells, health spells, those are the main three that people focus on. I'm going to get a green candle. I'm going to do it on a Thursday. I'm going to say these words. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to call on this spirit. Okay. And again, like when I was in it, I loved that. It felt natural. I'm like, okay, I'm going through the steps. I'm doing the things. And there was a feeling of having to strive still. And the way, like, I used to teach magic and witchcraft. And what I would tell people is, you can let go. Like, once you do the spell, the spirit that you're working with, the spell that you did, it's going to do its work. You can let go and detach. But I find there's still that energy, that way of being where we think that because we think that we're in control, we have to do all of this work to make things happen. That's the thing, right? And with God,
Woo.
yes, I believe we need to show up for what God's called us to. We can't just sit around expecting blessings to pour on us when we're just doing nothing for it. I mean, I think there's a lot of beauty in the action that we get to take, but there's a rest that we get to experience when we're in the waiting. We can
Woo.
have the goals, we can have the vision, we can have the desires coming from God, and we're like, oh yes, I can't wait to get to work on this and take the action. But there's also that piece that goes along with it where we're so much more present, we're so much more at rest compared to when we think that we have to do all of it on our own, or when, like, something I used to say constantly was, we're the universe in human form. I used to say that all the time, and now looking back, I'm like, that's a big responsibility. Like, to feel like you are the universe in human form and that you are in control of every single moment, like, that's a big responsibility. And now that that's been lifted, I can see how, yes, we show up, we do our part, but we have the creator of the universe working on our behalf. Like, the amount of peace that comes with that alone is just like, it's crazy good.
Woo. Yeah. Yeah. Now, going back a little bit into your story, you mentioned that in grade 6 you were suicidal and you don't really know where that came from. Like, that's wow. That's crazy. Like, did you see anything? Did you witness anything that made you just feel that type of way?
No, I always felt like I didn't fit in here. And even going back prior to that, I wasn't having suicidal tendencies, but I remember being a little kid and wishing that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I wasn't depressed. I wasn't, again, like, I had a great childhood. Like, not, there was nothing that I would be escaping from that made any sense. But it was this feeling of, I'm done here. I don't belong here. And then with the suicide attempts, the two that I had, the mindset behind that was like, I'm done and I want to go home. And I wasn't with God at that time, obviously. So it's not like I thought I was going to go to heaven, but I don't know where I thought I was going to go. But I'm like, this isn't it. Like, I just feel like I'm throwing in the towel. I'm checking out. Like, I've been here long enough. And it wasn't like I didn't feel emotionally tormented or mentally tormented. It was just an exhaustion that I was experiencing.
Okay. 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 So I'm like, wow, that's intense. But there might be children now that I guess, feel that weight of seeing how things are playing out in their lives. Like, I don't even want to wake up the next day, and that's sad. That's
Yeah.
sad. Now I know that you mentioned that you were on pills and vodka when your ex found you and all that, and that you were a heavy drinker back in the day. But do you enjoy a glass of white wine every now and again, or is that completely done in your life?
I would drink again. So this happened, that was in my early 20s when I was really out partying. I was like
Right.
college friends and everything like that. So as I got older, I drank less and less. And then I moved to where I live now in 2022. And at that point in my life, I would have maybe half a glass of red and
Hmm.
that would be it. And my body, as I've gotten older, it doesn't really respond well to a lot of alcohol. So I would have, if I had more than a couple glasses of wine, I'd be hungover for 2 days. I'm like, okay, this is definitely not worth it at all. But I would have a glass of wine. I would enjoy some gummies at night every once in a while, just to kind of like, take the edge off or just relax or just to feel like that little warm buzz. And then I started 75 hard. I've never finished 75 hard, but I've started it a couple times. And it was, what was it? It would have been a year this past February. And so I haven't had a drink since then because of 75 hard, you don't drink alcohol. So I cut that out completely. Didn't miss it because I didn't really drink that much to begin with. Didn't do the gummy thing anymore just because I didn't have them and I was just too lazy to buy more. And so I was like, all right, we're just going to raw dog our mental health and not have any kind of alcohol or substances whatsoever. And now I'm at a point where I'm not opposed to having a glass of wine. That doesn't, I don't have any beliefs that that's a horrible thing to be doing, but I know my body and I know that I like feeling energized. I like feeling refreshed when I wake up in the morning. I don't want to feel brain fog. I don't want that morning after feeling that comes even after, a glass or two. So,
No, understand that for sure. Because even when I drink to this day, like I just have like a drink of white wine, and then I'm in bed, and then the next morning I'm like, whoa, like this whole, like you said, that whole fog. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good.
yeah, not worth it.
For sure. Um, Going back to demons, I want to know, what was an interaction you had with a demon?
Yeah, so probably the most powerful encounter I had was with Lucifer. So at that time, I had worked with other demons, and in the world of demonology, in certain beliefs, there's a hierarchy. So there's dukes and earls, and I think presidents. I never really got into that too much, but there is a hierarchy, and Lucifer would be the prince of hell. He would be the main demon. And I had had great experiences working with a couple demons, and I'm like, okay, I feel this real strong pull to work with Lucifer, but I wanted to do the ritual properly. I wanted to go get some fresh flowers and candles, and I wanted to be intentional and kind of go through the motions and do things that I felt were going to be the best way to connect with him. And it was a morning that I was in the park with my dog. I was out with Oliver, and it was around like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, big open field all to ourselves, tossing the Frisbee around. And I heard this voice. I had this feeling. It was like this inner knowing that it was Lucifer saying, now is the time that we're going to connect. And at first I was like, yeah, no, I want to do things properly, like getting there, but now's not the time. He's like, no, now's the time. And I felt this energy move through my body. It felt like it was coming through the earth, like through the bottoms of my feet, right through my body. And I was walking across the field, and this chant that came to me was something like, Lucifer, fill me with your power, knowledge, and wisdom, or something like that. I forget the exact words, but I do remember feeling really cheesy. I'm like, this is something right out of the craft. This is something right out of a 90s witchcraft movie. But no one else was around. And I felt like it was a beautiful spiritual experience. I was feeling this energy move through my body. I was like, whew, okay, this is a power that um it's a power that's almost like addictive. It's like, this is the power that I have access to if I work with this entity. Like, are you serious? Like, holy cow, I feel like I can move mountains. I feel like I could like lift cars off the road. Like, it was a crazy amount of power.
Yeah.
And so I had this experience where I'm walking through the field, playing the Frisbee with the dog. And then I felt the energy kind of like dissipate. And I was walking back to my apartment, and in London, Ontario, we have the London Life. I think they're called Canada Life now, but it's a huge insurance company, and their main office, it's this beautiful, beautiful old building. And we would walk past it on a regular basis because we're always out at that time of day. And after that encounter with Lucifer, all the lights on the exterior of that building turned on all at once when I walked past. And Lucifer is known as the god of light. He's the one who brings enlightenment to people. And I took that as a sign. And so that experience, feeling his energy in the park and then having those lights come on, I'm like, this is the path I'm meant to be on. And again, when we hear about Satanism and Luciferianism, it's so different than what Hollywood makes it out to be, right? Like
Right.
I'm feeling this feels so right. I'm feeling this enlightenment. I'm feeling this positive energy. Like I'm feeling so spiritually open, and I feel like I have access to this energy and power and wisdom and knowledge. Like what could be wrong with this? But that was probably like the most like potent spiritual experience I had working with them.
Wow. Now, I gotta ask you, how is it being on the Lord's side? Have you had an encounter with Him?
I haven't had anything where I feel that way in my body. I haven't
Mhm.
had that like that electrical charge.
Right.
But again, it goes back to his peace and that
Mm.
resting in God. That's the thing that I didn't even know I needed. I didn't know I was seeking that. I had no idea that that was even available. But it's that space where we can just come and just be present, and there's no need to like we don't need to have that power flowing through us. We don't need to tap into rituals. We don't need to do any of these things because we have the God of the universe that can support us. He lives within us. And that, I guess, like that fire, that would be the thing that I feel now with God. There's that passion and there's that fire for life. And the way that I love life and people now is completely different. Like, even going back to like some of my old content and some of the way that I just felt in general, I just felt like there was so much anger there. And again, I didn't feel that angry. I'm just like, oh, this is what's coming through me. And then I would read some of my posts. I'm like, okay, there's bold. And then there's being like a jerk. There's kind of like, there's stuff I'm like, no, you were just mad. Like you were a really angry person. And I've noticed now, like, I'm definitely not perfect. So I'm not implying that, but I'm a lot better with other people.
Right.
As an introvert by nature, I find, sometimes it would be challenging to be with other people. And now it's just, I just love everyone. Like, I just like, my heart is so open and I'm experiencing this whole kind of love that I was really closed off to before.
That's amazing. Like the peace and the love of God, like that's electrifying. And
Yeah.
only God can do that right there. Because
Yeah.
listen, people be getting on my last nerves. So no, it that's definitely God right there, friend, for sure. Um, and just one last thing. I am extremely happy for you, friend, because you completed your first video podcast. How do you feel about that?
I feel so good, and I have to thank you. I know we talked about this before on social media, but I knew I was meant to do video podcasts. God put that on my heart. I think it was maybe a week or two before you and I had talked the first time.
Right.
And I was coming up with every excuse in the book. I was like, "Oh, my hair is not done. I have to do this. I have to do that." And I knew I was going to do it, but I was putting it off and putting it off. And then when you mentioned it, I was like, "I'm called out. I have to do this." And so I just recorded the second one tonight, right before our conversation here. And it does take some getting used to because I've done tons of live video. I've done tons of live training where it's video only. And I feel it's a very different space to be in than when I'm doing the podcast, because the podcast always felt very intimate. It felt very, very casual. And the fact that I was doing it in my pajamas sometimes at the kitchen table, like really early hours in the morning, very, very different vibe than doing video. And so now I'm kind of getting used to delivering the podcast the way I always have, but also seeing myself on video and kind of making sure that like I talk with my hands all the time. So I'm like, keep your hands down, Kelly. But just kind of getting used to being on video with the podcast format at the same time. It'll take some getting used to, but I love it. I love being on video. I love connecting with people that way. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that the last time we talked.
Oh yeah, I'm just so happy for you, and you have some amazing content. I mean, it really does fit your brand and what you do. It's bold, it's courageous, it's in your face, but in a loving, respectful kind of way. So I love it. I love it. Oh man. So Kelly, what would you? So you've gone through a lot of stuff, and you are a bit older now. So what would the older Kelly tell the younger Kelly today?
Oh, you're here for a purpose. You're here, like, don't get caught up thinking that your life is supposed to just be a series of going to work and getting paid and dating, getting like those things. Yeah, like we can have the job, the relationships, we can have the material things, absolutely. But there's so much more that we're meant for. Like our life isn't meant to be Groundhog Day. Our life is meant to be lived to the fullest. And when we have that relationship with God, that's how we get there. That's how we experience the true richness of our life and what it's meant to be. But for anyone who might be listening who feels like, is this it? Like, maybe you've ticked off those boxes of success and maybe you've made the money and you have the house and the wife and the kids and the car. And you're like, well, what else is there? Like, there is a purpose and a reason why you're here. And if you don't tap into that, you're missing out on what God has available for you. So take that time with God, pray, do some journaling, like allow yourself to just be with Him and open yourself up to Him so He can share with you what you're meant to be here for and that work that you're meant to be doing. Because even if it doesn't replace your full-time job, even if He gives you something like maybe you're supposed to, I don't know, start an animal rescue or work with children or do something like that on the side, there's going to be so much there for you that's going to enrich your experience. But if you're just going through the motions thinking that you have to like keep up with the Joneses and do this and do that and do that, you're putting yourself into a place that I feel leads to nothing but misery. Because at the end of the day, if our life is about chasing goals and ticking boxes, then that's not what life is for. Our life is for living with God, for God, and doing the work that He has called us to.
Well, that's it for this podcast. That was good. No, that is and that is amazing. And that's what I'm realizing too, Kelly. It's like for so many years, I find myself having to do this rat race where I'm just competing against people that really don't even care about me and what I do. You know what I mean? And so it's freeing to know that I can be me and I can be authentically me and enjoy my life. And I don't have to keep up with anybody. As long as I'm keeping up with the pace of the Holy Spirit and what He's doing, I'm I'm good. I'm good. And yeah, that was very encouraging because, I for a while it's like, man, like, oh, I gotta go on ahead and, you know, get a nice paying job and get married and do all that. And I have those things and that's great. But it's just like, honestly, the reward is just Jesus. It's just Jesus and actually having everlasting life and just doing, or we get to partner with Him as we get to be able to impact people in their life. And so to me, that's that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on again, and I appreciate you. I will link all of her info in the comment section below. And friend, thank you so much, and I definitely want you to come back again.
Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. Well,
Awesome.
people, yeah, thank you. And you are listening to the Bar and Friends podcast with my homegirl, Kelly Don. And thank you for tuning in to this amazing episode. And until next time, peace.